Okay, we're back working on this 2002 Dodge Ram 1500. Today we're going to be replacing the control arm bushings. The last video we did the ball joints, so we're going to tackle the bushings here today. So if you enjoy the content on the channel, I hope you will consider subscribing. And for those that do watch, I appreciate each and every one of you. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I decided to go with the TRQ brand. As you can see, it's just a rubber bushing. And then we got one smaller one. And of course we've got enough, we've got two on each side that's needed. And these were $35, so pretty good deal for these. And I've used this part a lot, and they're pretty good parts. Okay, so first thing, get your wheels chalked, your rear wheel. Okay, and this is a very important step that you're going to want to do anytime you're doing the upper and the lower control arms. You want to get the measurement from here down to the center line of your wheel. So we want to take a measurement, and we want to, you're going to have to get down there and eyeball it and get a accurate gauge on where the center of this is. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get it pretty close. This is going to prevent your bushings from wearing out prematurely. Basically, you want to get it set back to where the ride height is going to be. Okay, and just to be sure, I'm going to come over to this other side and I'm going to check and make sure. And what I'm getting is right at 19 5/8 inch. So if you got it around somewhere around 19 and a half, you're going to be pretty close. So we're going to write that number down and we're going to save it. Okay, so we're going to go over the tools here quickly that we're going to need. Okay, now we got three different tools here. The most important thing is this green box here. You're going to need a extra large or large ball joint or bushing press tool. So you're not going to be able to do this with the smaller one, and that's the one here in this orange kit I'll show you. So you can easily see the difference. We got a 9-inch opening versus a 6-inch opening on this one right here. All right, just to give you a comparison of these. So you need this big one. Okay, so this smaller ball joint press, I was mainly using it for these cups you have in here. However, I own this bearing press kit over here, and I can use that as well. I really don't have to have this one, but I do need this big clamp here. This is an important adapter. This is in my blue bearing press kit that you really need. Now I'm sure you can come up with something else to do this, but this thing here fits perfectly on this large bushing, and makes it much easier to press that in there. So definitely I need this. And I said I could use the cups and the other adapters out of this kit, but I have this one, so I'm kind of using both, but we're not going to be using the smaller clamp here. So the main thing to note, you need the large ball joint. You're going to need one of those. You can get this as a loaner tool, you can get this as a loaner tool, but I don't know if you can get one of these here, so you'll probably have to get that. Now, I've probably pointed this out before. These truck lower control arms, at least, even for an aftermarket, you're looking at, I think they were $160 each, and that's for an aftermarket. So in this case, definitely worth replacing these bushings, ball joints, whatever. Okay, so over here I got my 8-pound sledge, a shot-filled mallet. It's not just a regular rubber mallet, and a long extended ratchet. I got my torque wrench. We've got some various socket sizes we're going to be using here from, we've got a 27, a 24, 21, 7/8 for the lugs, an 18 and a 19 and a 13, so that's the majority of the sockets. I also have a 13/16 wrench. You could use a millimeter, but or metric, but I'm using that. I've got a 19 and a 17 millimeter, some needle nose, and a little crescent. And then over here, I'm going to be using some WD-40, some PB Blaster, white lithium, and of course the tape measure was to check, make sure we get the control arm back into the position it needs to be in. So that's pretty much everything that we're going to be using. Okay, we're just going to start out with the 7/8 here, getting the lugs, just break them loose. Okay, we got it lifted up here on this part of the frame, and we just placed a jack stand somewhere up here. Go ahead and finish removing these, get the wheel off. Okay, so we're going to get to work on basically removing this from the knuckle here, this lower control arm. Now I really don't see the the benefit in removing all of this, but you could if it's going to make it easier for you. But the way that I'm going to be doing it is simply going to be popping the lower ball joint loose and lowering it down that way. However, the first thing that we're going to tackle is these stabilizer links. Now in order to do this, we really, to be able to get these out of the way, we really need to have them loose on both sides, kind of like do them at the same time. We can roll this bar up and out of the way. So we're going to go ahead and work on completely removing the 18 millimeter nut that's underneath here. And we also have to hold this right here. This is a 17, I believe. It's just got some flats where you can fit the wrench on it right there, and we're going to start with that. So we got a spot under here we're going to slip the 18 on, and then we're going to hold this right here with this hand. Like I said, we've loosened it. We're going to do the same thing on both sides. So I've got the other side, the nut off of that side as well. So it's very important, or this thing's going to be in your way every turn. So now what we can do, since the other side is loose, is we can work on wiggling this up. It's going to be tight because it's got pressure on it. Let me try to hit it and see if I can knock it up. You do have to be a little bit careful with the threads there, but it should knock up and out of there. So it's loose now, as you can see. Okay, you can see on the driver's side, got both of these loose. So this will completely move. And you see it's loose on this side. Okay, next thing we're going to get on is this shock absorber here. I'm going to spray that down a little bit. We're going to work on the top first. Okay, and this is where I'm just using this little crescent here, if I can get it to fit. So that this is just going to spin. Got my 19, so I've got to hold that. So you get the idea. We're just going to hold that, completely remove this top nut here. Okay, I run out of this flat to grab a hold of, and it's still, I think it's because it's got tension on it is the reason it's not coming off. So we're going to get down, and we may have to lift up on it slightly with a jack, and then we'll work on getting those lower ones. So I'm just lifting right, I got a block of wood there, lifting right where the ball joint is. As you can see, I can spin it off here by hand now. Okay, so let's get the jack out of the way. It will pull that down. Okay, we've got the 13 millimeters on these studs on the lower part of the control arm. Now you want to get a hand on this because this is just going to fall out of here once these are both out. You don't want it to damage your shock. And it looks like I'm going to have to either lift this control arm or lift the vehicle to get clearance to slide this out. Maybe. Well, it looks like it's going to come out. Alright, so there we have that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get on this lower ball joint. If you have the original ball joint, you'll have a 24 millimeter nut like this, and which I'm going to be using this. So you need a shouldered nut like this. This is an aftermarket Moog on here, so I'm going to be using a 27. So first thing I got to do is get my needle nose, get this cotter pin here out. Alright, so got the cotter pin out. Go ahead and take this loose. Alright, I'm going the wrong way. Alright, I'm going to put this old nut on here, and I'm going to run it up flush to the end there. I can find the right socket here. This is just the Teflon locking, but I want it all the way flush to the end, so when I go to hitting this with my 8-pound sledge, we're not going to damage this. So that right there looks about good. Okay, so I lifted it up slightly because I need the clearance between here and the ground to be able to swing my sledge a little bit. Alright, so let's see how much trouble this is going to give me. I'm going to turn the sledge sideways here. Oh wow, came right out of there. Now if you haven't replaced your ball joints, that's the original, it is not going to come out of that easy. And it seems like the tie rods and the upper control arm are worse. I think it's just spinning on me here, maybe, I don't know. There we go. Okay, now I've still got the jack here, and what I want to accomplish is I want to get this arm lifted up enough to where I can slip this knuckle right out from under here. So I'm going to have to go up another inch here. So I'm going to have to compress it, lifting it some more. So we're just going to do that until I get it up above there high enough. Okay, as you can see, I've got this lifted up high enough to where the knuckle will slide out from under there. And then basically I'm going to lower this back down. You see where I also got up here, repositioned my jack. So I'm going to kind of pull this out and allow that control arm to set down carefully. Still have, you know, tension on that spring. Okay, so I got that pulled back, so I'm just going to lower that down. And you can see that spring, it's just dropping down. Okay, so as you see, we've lowered that, and this is going to take the tension off of the bolts that are going through the control arm. It's also got tension off of the springs. You can see it's just pretty much sitting there. Now once we take these loose, this is going to pretty much just fall out of here. Now you might want to, almost forgot, you might want to take and put you a mark on this spring. Put you a mark here, put you a mark there on this piece, just to make sure that you put it back exactly where it come from there. Okay, so there we go. Just so we marked this part of the frame, the rubber boot, this spring, so there's no confusion going back. Even put a mark down here, so we make sure we put this back in the position it was in. And as you can see, there's no need for a spring compressor to do what we need to do here. I got me some cardboard down here, so when this falls down, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so on the front of the vehicle here by the rack, I'm going to put this 13/16s, and I'm going to hold that in, and I'm going to get on the other side with the 24. Okay, and these are going to be really tight, so you're probably going to need a breaker bar to get this loose initially. But let's see. I think I'm going to have to get my breaker bar. My extended ratchet ain't going to get it. Okay, so we got the breaker bar and 2-foot cheater pipe. Okay, and I'm back on this other side. No way I'm getting leverage on that side. Okay, so I got it moving. Take my cheater pipe off now. Just takes a lot to get them. Okay, I think I'm spinning my wrench over there. I'm going to get over and hold that. Nope. I think it's staying put for now. Alright, now it's moving. Alright, so I can switch over to my ratchet now that I got that broke loose. Okay, so now I'm holding it with the 13/16 over here. Now I see where these were calling for like 150 pounds of torque. Seems like a lot, but thinking 130, 140 is probably sufficient. I'd seen where somebody had tried to torque them to 180. I think they snapped their bolt off. I mean, really 130 I think would be fine for this size bolt. Okay, so there's that 24 millimeter. We shouldn't have any trouble whatsoever getting these out with the tension off. So I can push this through now. I'm going to leave it till I get this other side though. One thing I know is you're going to need a lot of strength to get these loose. I would definitely recommend the cheater bar on top of the breaker bar. Alright. hold this other side. Our 13/16. Or in this case, we'll just let it hit against that frame or that control arm there. See, I'm just letting it hit right here on this one. All right, now it's coming down on. Luckily, I've got my leg here. So once I got it loose, you see the control arm will just fall. So you got to be careful. And we'll get that spring out here as soon as we get this nut off of here. Alright, there's the top of the spring. Rubber piece just fell out. Alright, so I'm going to get out from under here. So another thing you're going to want to do is keep this nut on the end of your ball joint so it's not getting damaged. Now as you can see, once you get these bolts loose, this will just fall down. This is kind of falling down. Spring just fell down. We can just reach in here at this point and just lift that right out of the way. Alright, so let's just pull this here out of the way. Let's pull this spring right out the side here. Here we have that. Now if you can see, everything here is fine with this. The brake line is not under any tension. Everything's completely fine. Okay, so there's no tension on this, so we should be able to push these bolts out just by lifting on it slightly. Kind of supporting it with my knee. I don't want it to go flying down here on me. But as you can see, those come out of there easily. There's no tension, it's not in a bind. Go ahead and drop it on down. Okay, and I'm going to, just to be mindful of this, because we're going to be flipping this thing around, we got to be careful not to be breaking stuff. I'm just going to cover it up with this ball joint, so we're not damaging anything, hopefully. Okay, and I want you to take note right here. This is the smaller of the two bushings, and you'll note the gap here, and you'll note how much is coming through. Now it's very important, you know, even on this side, these don't set down exactly flat. This is not perfectly flat, and the reason for the gap here though is when you go to put this in, depending on, okay, let's say you push these all the way down. When you go to put this in, you're not going to be able to get it in place. And then you're going to have to get a hold of this and figure out how you're going to push it back out, which is very difficult. You may be having to take the whole thing back out. So very, very important to make sure, if you listen to any of this, don't push these in too far. If anything, leave a gap on both of them, or try to get them close to where they are now. But I'm probably going to leave a gap about like this on both of them, and then I'm going to go test fit it. It's very easy to push it in farther, very, very difficult to push them back out, and I know. Okay, I just wanted to explain what I'm doing to this one here. Now you'll note that I have, this is an old bushing, just like the one that's in here that I've hauled it out. Wasn't very easy, by the way, but if you're going to be pushing back a new one, you're going to need something like this so you don't damage it. So I just wanted to show you that. Now as far as taking this old one out, you don't have to have this, but let's see if I can get this back off here. If you are going to be pushing one of the new ones back, you're going to have to do that so you don't damage it. Basically what you have to do, you could take a washer or something and get on here And what it's going to do, it's going to push this rubber. This is a rubber piece inside here, and it's just going to push this inner part, this rod or whatever, if you will, it's going to push it back into the cup, and you'll push it down flat. Now you don't have to go very far, because if you look, so this thing's just coming through about 1/8 of an inch. Once it gets back pretty much even, it's going to pop loose. So it doesn't have to go very far. It's just, you know, through that little bit. So you just basically got to get something flat. You don't want to damage or cut into this. You want something flat. You could also use one of these. This is from out of this bearing kit to get on there. I think I'm going to use this because I have this already. I'm just going to flip it around this way, and I'm going to make sure that it stays right on this, so it's pushing right up against that old one. So I'm going to get it set back up. We're going to take a little WD-40 here, here, and here. This is the smaller of the two. Alright, so you notice I got this cup here. This is the one that comes in the smaller ball joint press. I'm using the large one. So we're going to set that on there like that. This is going to sit right into that. And even with this big one, this is the biggest one in there. This barely fits in. It won't work for the other side. That side is too big. I have to actually use my bearing press. Okay, I'm not on here just right. So this is just barely going to fit. And this thing is, sometimes you got to get it set up. You don't want to be pushing against the bore and mess that up. You'll be having to go in there with a file. It doesn't take a lot to get this going. And like I said, you can use something as simple as a heavy-duty washer to push this down. You just need to push it down even with that surface. I'm just using this because I have it. Alright, so we got to get this, I'm using a 22 millimeter over here. I got to get this thing set. If I push on the rubber part, I'm not going to make any progress. It's going to take some doing. I'll tell you, this big ball joint tool is a beast. And it will make easy work of this. Okay, it looks like I may not be on it right. Hold on a moment. You see, I'm just using my 22 millimeter over here. Another thing I've noticed that works, I got my shot filled rubber mallet. Somebody gives this thing a good whack, and it'll actually get it moving. I feel like that it's pushing on it, but it's just still not moving. So we may have to reorient it here. Okay, so that method wasn't working as far as getting it out. It was wanting to dig in here, and that's going to make matters worse. Now you notice this washer I've got here is just a little bit bigger. You just need something bigger than the end of this thing you're pushing out. I want to reorient it, and I'm just going to push that whole rod back. Right, if you can see, I'm basically pushing that whole rod back through that rubber bushing, and I'm going to have to reorient it here just slightly. I'm off center, so let me do that. Alright, that's close enough. If you'll watch, this is going to pop this thing through here. It's just going to take some force. That's probably what you're going to hear. And once it goes past that certain point, it's coming out, and it's going to come all the way out. So you can see. Now the reason that this one wasn't through very far is because the other side, let me show you. You see how this one doesn't have much of a gap. So if you leave, ideally you want to try to get them even so that you get more of this through. So we'll try to do that, but we're definitely going to have to leave a gap. Alright, so this is the largest cup in the ball joint toolkit. Doesn't fit, so I've got to use one of my bigger cups. And this is the, I think the smallest, no, this is about the mid-size one on my wheel bearing install kit. So I mean, you have to have big stuff for these trucks, and this is, I need the mid-size one on my wheel bearing press kit. Now you can't use your wheel bearing tool obviously because the bolt won't fit through here. Now if it could fit through there, I suppose you could go with it, but any bolt that would be that small to fit through there would not hold up to this kind of force. Alright, so we got this cup. Now we're kind of going to do the same thing on this other side. We're just going to get something flat, mash against it. Alright, so I think I'm just going to go, we're going to go like with this cup, and then I'm going to go with this tool right here, maybe. Alright, so here's my setup for this, and so the biggest thing is getting this thing centered up. If you don't get it centered up, then you're just going to have to start over. So we're just pushing that rod through. And this one is going to take a little bit more force. Alright, so we're going to find out how much trouble this wants to be. So sometimes I stop and hit it with the mallet if I feel like things ain't moving. You can kind of gauge by how tight. Just using my extended ratchet here. It's not feeling just horrible yet, but it's not wanting to move a lot. Okay, I can see that it's moving. There we go. Alright. You can see they ain't just horrible, but you can see the dry rot. You know, eventually they're going to get bad. Alright, so we'll just clean these out a little bit. Make sure there ain't no rust in there. Alright, so this right here is out of my wheel bearing press kit. And this thing works perfectly. Just to show you, if you take your bushing, turn it over, you notice that, you know, this is sticking up. Now if we go to mashing on this, we're going to ruin it. We're going to press into that rubber bushing and probably mess it up, so we don't want to do that. So we need something with a little bit of clearance, and this actually fits this perfectly, where when it goes on there, it gives it clearance, and then it hits just right around this outer part where you need to press. So you got to press around this, and the same for this one. It actually, this part here fits down around that, as you can see. So this is not going to damage It's actually going to put force on this outer part. And this is the part that's getting pressed in. So we're going to start with the bigger one. This one is the more difficult one. So you can see this part here is bigger, and that's the part that's going to fit in there tightly, and then this is going to press in here pretty snug. But we got to get this started straight. Now it'll line itself up to some degree, but you got to kind of get it started straight. Now we're going to use this cup is out of the bearing the ball joint press kit. Just to show you, it's out of here. I'm using this cup. Just the end of the end of this right here fits right onto that nicely, and that's the reason I kind of like to use this when I can, because it centers it up on there. So that's so anyways, we're going to be using that to basically put on there because it's big enough. However, on this side over here is a little bit smaller. We'll use the smaller size that fits onto there. Of course, you could use the bigger one. It doesn't really matter. And so we're using this cup. Just this hole is bigger. Well, it's not bigger, but it's almost as big as the end of my tool. So I don't want to be damaging either one of these, so I'm just using this washer. Just need some kind of washer, and we're going to just pop that on the end, and we'll get this thing set up just like this. So let me get the tool on there. Okay, this washer wouldn't work because this was going in there and bumping the nub there, and don't want to damage in that bushing. So I just put a different flat washer on there. And we'll take, spray a little of this on here to just help. Okay, another important thing, these things are really tight. As you go to squeezing this in, it wants to bend this metal in, so it'll bend in on you if you don't put something in here to prevent that. And then what happens is it gets cocked, making it almost impossible to press it in. So you want to put something in here. I've just got this socket and this chisel just to keep this from moving that way. And I'm also going to be looking in here to make sure this stays centered. Okay, and this may be trial and error. If it doesn't start off straight, then you'll have to pop it back loose, straighten it up, and go again. So you just have to kind of watch it. It is really difficult to get this started. Now this one's pretty close. Let me show you. And it may be that it'll try to line itself up, but either way, try to kind of get it close as you're getting it started there. And remember, we don't want to go down too far. I'm going to make sure that I've probably got, the thickness of this part right here more. Right, so we're just going to kind of watch this, and as we start getting it, so that's really getting tight there, because it wants to try to squeeze that metal in. So it'll bend it in, and this will get jammed, and you won't be able to move it. Right, so you can see it's moving. This is actually not going too bad. I'm just using the extended ratchet. As I said, I don't want to go too far. I'm actually going to take it over to the truck, and I'm going to test fit it. Now I suppose you could probably use maybe a tape measure or something, or measure the old one. See, I think I'm gonna stop about right here. I really don't want to go too far on this. I think I'm going to stop it about right there. And always come back and push it more. Okay, so we're just going to remove this. Now once you get this off of here, your socket and stuff will come out of there. It just, like I said, it prevents it from squeezing this in. So believe it or not, it's so much force that it will press that in. As you can see, with that cup, there's absolutely no damage to the end of this. And that actually went in a lot easier than what I expected it to. And you got to think about, these have to be a very tight fit. If not, these are just going to spin in here. So these have to be extremely tight so the rubber bushing basically can do its job. Okay, on this side we're going to be doing the same thing. This one goes in a lot easier, however, and it even lines itself up easier. We're going to be using the same cup. Said it works just as well. This inner part right here is going to press right against that, so it works out. And so this one goes in a lot easier regardless. Okay, now I realized the cup was hitting just slightly on the nub on the end of that bushing, so what I did was use this medium size out of the orange ball joint press kit. This is the smallest size, this is the biggest size, and this is the medium, and it fits actually a little better on the outside of this. And like I said, I don't want to do any damage by pushing on the rubber, and it was going to hit just a little bit. It probably would have worked, but I'm going to go this route because this will actually work without taking the chance of doing any damage there. So again, we're going to spray this a little bit. This one usually goes a lot easier. Alright, now this is the smallest size of these cups. This fits right in here perfectly. So again, you want to make sure you got that in there so it's not bending this metal in, because it will. So, you know, sometimes it's about trial and error, and the main thing is you want to get things set up to where it's going to work out the best. So here we go. I don't expect I'll have any trouble out of this one. The smaller one goes much easier. So we're going to err on the side of caution. I don't want to go too far, because that is going to be problems. Way more difficult to move. Okay, so it's getting tight on me here. Okay, so go a little more. And I can't keep this thing from sliding around here. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test fit this. Like I said, I want to err on the side of caution, because if I go too far, I'm going to have to be pushing this thing back out, and it's not fun. Okay, so let's take this off here. And if I have to come back, then we'll come back and we'll press it in just a little more. We're going to go over here and test fit it and just kind of see what it needs. Okay, I wanted to show you my setup here. You know, you want to always be careful whatever you're doing. Like I said, there's no benefit for me to remove all this. because I'm going to have to put it back on. But I've got it sitting on blocks. Basically the weight of it is holding it there. But you want to be careful. You know, if this gets knocked down, I'm going to be having a real bad day. But let me show you. So I actually got lucky, and this fit in here nicely on the first go. So I'm probably good with it where it is, because if basically they have to both be in the same equal amounts, I guess you could say. You know, I could probably, you know, move them. Well, if I move one or the other, it's going to affect the other. Right now, it's actually working. I'm surprised that I got it on the first go. So I'm going to go with this. But you can see, if you know what I'm talking about, if this is off, either way, I'm going to have to push it back. So I got this where I want it. I got that side pushed in where I want it. So if I did not have it in the right spot, then it would hit on this right here, and I wouldn't be able to get it in there. So you want to err on the side of caution when you press them in there. Don't press them down too far, because you may get it where you can't get it to fit, and you're going to have to push it back, and it's going to be really hard. So, you know, we don't have the spring or anything in at this point, so this will slide into place pretty easy for the most part. Just got to watch, because it's going to move. When I move it on one side, it's going to move it on the other. So we're going to try to get, looks like I may have to get this bolt from the other side first. Give me just a second. Okay, I had to work it around there, but I got it. Right, so you shouldn't have much difficulty getting this through. So I'm just going to wiggle it. Alright, so I almost got it completely through there. I'm going to go over to the other side. There we go. And get that other bolt in. Okay, so this one should go even easier with that other side. Alright. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get our 24mm nuts on here. Now, these are self-locking. So again, I got to hold this other side. And then we'll start snugging it up a little bit. We're not going to get them tight. Remember that measurement, 19 5/8. We're going to have to get this set back to that point. And probably wondering about the spring. Well, we're going to get to that. Alright, so that's, we'll get this other one on. Alright, we're getting ready to get this one on this side. Actually, I actually got this one in wrong. I'm going to have to switch this around. Just now realized it. Because it's loose, it makes it a lot easier. Alright, give me a second. Okay, now we got it in the right spot. So like I was talking about with the bushings, basically you can look at it from underneath and just imagine that if you're shifting this whole control arm one way or the other, how's it going to affect the bushing on the other side? So if you shift it this way, it's going to move you closer to this part, but then it's going to move you out on the other one, and you might wind up barely having the bushing through there. So that's what you got to kind of be mindful of, and that's why you don't want to push it too far. And basically I'm going to try to get these, I don't know if it matters a lot, but I'm going to try to get these washer marks back to where they were. when I go to tighten it. I'm not gonna snug it up yet. I want it to be loose still. So I don't want it to be tight because we still got to move this up and down, so it's still loose. Okay, so we're getting set up to get this spring back in here. And you see we just still got this setting on the blocks. I've got a jack in place. Got it fairly close to where the ball joint's at here with a wooden block. So this is free. Now, because this is pulled over here, I did take this 13mm out just to make sure there's not really any tension on that line. Not a big deal. And so this is still loose. So we're just getting ready to set the spring. We've got this little top piece. We have the mark. And then we got the mark on this, and it's just, you know, so I get it back. You can kind of see where the indentation is, but just so we get it back into place where we need it to be. And I need to turn it. Okay, so with it down there, I've got clearance, and I'm just going to set the spring in here where it goes. I'm going to line up my mark that I've got up top. Okay, so we're going to line up our mark back where it was here, because we got a mark on this as well. And you can see, you know, you got to have it low enough to have clearance to set it in here. We're going to start lifting it with the jack now. And that essentially, you know, has that pocket that it sets into with the rubber bushing or whatever, the air shock absorber. And we just got that all lined up, so it's going to stay essentially in place once these marks are lined up. I know that I've got it back where it was, and you can see we're lined up down here as well. Okay, as you can see, we're getting it compressed here. Now the thing is, I have to get it up enough so I can slip this ball joint back on this lower. Okay, so I'm getting ready to take it off of the blocks here. I'm just going to check and see if I've got it where I need it. Got it compressed enough here. Okay, so I've actually got it way more than what I needed. I'm a good inch or so up. So I can either lift this up and work it in, or I can just simply lower the jack and watch this and make sure it doesn't hit. I think I'm going to lower the jack just because it'll be easier. Alright, so we're going to slowly, and I got to get over and pull back on it. It's going to try to hang up as well, because we just need to get it a little more. Okay, so we basically got our jack out of the way for a moment, and we're just going to get this go ahead and just torque this. Oh, I got to get the right size first. There, I got my 27. And we're going to go ahead and torque it to 55 foot-pounds. We've got to keep in mind, though, if it doesn't line up with the little pin hole, then we're going to have to turn it some more. Okay, it's not quite lining up. Alright, so I just had to turn it a little bit more there to get it to go through properly. Get this bent over. Alright, so there we got that secured. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get a get our jack positioned right under where that ball joint is there. It's like the best place to get a hold of it. Got the block of wood, and it won't hurt a thing at all. It's just a really good lifting point. So we're gonna basically lift this up now until we can get our 19 5/8. Going to get a measurement, and we'll go ahead and start torquing down the bushings from there. Right, so let's go ahead and start lifting it up here. Okay, so here we are. We're going to measure like we did before, just from this fender down to the center line, and just, you know, visualize the center line of the spindle right there. Okay, so you probably can't see this exactly the way that I can here, but we've got I've got it at 19 5/8. So we're going to go ahead and lock them down. Okay, so I got my 13/16 wrench on that other side, and I'm going to hold it. I'm just going to get it as tight as I can with this, and then we'll get on to torquing it. Okay, so now we're on the front one, and we'll just get it as tight as we can with our ratchet, extended ratchet. Get the torque wrench on it. That. Right, so I'm going to torque this to 140 foot-pounds. That's plenty. I'm going to have to hold it though with this other hand. That's going to be the trick. Okay, I'm going to have to reposition or something here. I'm not getting the force I need. Let's try this again. Okay, so I had to get on this other side so I could actually pull on it, and I've got that wrench wedge as well, so I can use both hands. All right, we're going to get the back one here. Okay, while we've got this lifted into place, we're going to feed our shock back up through here. We're going to get this top part on first. Let's see. And remember, we got a locking nut, so we got to hold that. 5/16 works also. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and tighten this down a little bit. Now you want to make sure that your bottom part is obviously where it needs to go. And it only goes one way. Okay, so I'll come back and torque this after I get the lower part on. I know that rubber bushing's seen better days. Okay, and I'm going to slowly lower this. See, I got about 1.5 inches. Well, actually probably a couple inches before it bottoms out. I want it to set on that part, and then I will get my 13mm nuts back on. Like I said, you have to watch. Like if you turn it this way, it'd be wrong. You see how it angles, so you got to make sure that it's the right way. Okay, now it's actually better to leave that top nut slightly loose because it makes it lining these up easier. So you might want to leave the top one just slightly loose. Alright, we're going to snug these down. Okay, we're going to torque these to 25 foot-pounds. And then we're going to get up to the top. I want to go 25 on the upper as well. Okay, before I torque the upper part of that shock, I want to get this in place because it'll be easier, and it'll be easier to torque that when I have the tension off. Now, like I said, we've got to do both of these at the same time, so I'm going to have to go to the other side and make sure that I've got that lined up before I can push this down. Okay, I pushed it down there enough to where I can get my 18mm under here now, and we're just going to basically pull it on down here because it doesn't want to push down for whatever reason. And since it's not even spinning right now, but it may start spinning in a moment, and I'll have to get the 17mm on these flats right here and hold it. Okay, it actually didn't spin. Okay, so just to show you where we're at under here, and see, this has a, looks like an Allen or Torx or something you can hold on there as well, but this, we're just coming under here and tightening that up. You kind of need a thin 17, but a 17 will fit on this flat here when it's spinning. Alright, so we're going to torque this to 45 foot-pounds. We're going to go ahead and lower this, get tension on it, and we'll torque that shock absorber up there on the top. Alright, I'm just going to torque this to 25. Alright, so we're going to get this 13mm back in this bracket here and snug it up. Now you do have to get that little clip in there first where you can get the bolt in. Alright, we're ready to go ahead and get our tire on, and then we just need to get the jack stand and everything lowered. One thing I've learned is you definitely want to kind of get your hub where you need it, because these are really heavy. So we got it lower where I could just slip it on. We don't have to lift it very much. Right, we got our jack stand out of the way. Go ahead and get our 7/8. Fits these the best. These snugged up. I'm just going to torque these to 100 foot-pounds. Alright, so we're all finished up getting these bushings back in these control arms, these new bushings. Like I said, these just aftermarket, not OEM. I don't know what the OEM control arms cost, but the aftermarkets are like $160 each, so I think it's well worth taking the time and effort to replace these. Now, on you know, smaller cars and stuff like that, the control arms are cheap, so it makes more sense just to replace them. But on these trucks, can be very expensive. So the bushings, I'll leave a link. They were like $35 for the pair. The you know, I did the ball joints previously, And even those weren't that bad. I was like, it was less than $40 for some really good Moog ball joints. So, you know, you do the math, and I think it's well worth it. A little bit of effort. And I will say the bushings will be one of the toughest things on the suspension. So if you can do those, you can do anything else on there. But we're going to go through each of these things. So we tackled the ball joints. We got the bushings now, and we're going to move on to the next thing in the next video. Probably be the upper control arms there. So anyways, that's going to do it. I hope you found the video helpful. I hope you enjoyed the video. I just want to thank everybody, you know, that watches the channel. Appreciate each and every one of you, and thanks for watching.